Now, the president of the World Bank has appealed for urgent international action to address the growing global crisis of hunger and soaring food prices. Robert Zoellick says staple foods like rice have jumped 75% in price within the last 2 months, and they're becoming out of reach for many people.
In Bangladesh, a 2-kilogram bag of rice, like this, now consumes about half of the daily income of a poor family. With little margin for survival, rising prices too often mean fewer meals.
Now, millions of the world's most vulnerable people are struggling to cope, and it's leading to violence and protests around the world. Let's take a look at the scale of that unrest, starting in the Americas, where in Haiti, at least 4 people died this week in food riots. The price of food there has risen by 40% in 6 months. Meanwhile, in Mexico, the rising price of corn used to make tortillas has brought tens of thousands of people out onto the streets. And in Bolivia, we've seen protests as well as in Argentina. Moving over to Africa, trouble is widespread. At least 7 people died in Egypt in riots over the price of bread. West Africa has also been suffering with clashes in Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Senegal and Burkina Faso. And over in Asia, the rising price of rice is a concern in many countries. Here in Indonesia, tens of thousands of people have been marching in protest, and the costs are also causing problems in Thailand, the Philippines and Bangladesh. We'll be taking a look at the causes and the effects of the global food crisis. Hannah Belcher now reports from Bangladesh, where there are fears of mass starvation.
These women and children are hungry. They've been standing in the heat since sunrise to buy rice at this government-subsidised outlet. The price of rice in Bangladesh has risen by nearly 60% in the past 6 months due to Cyclone Sidr destroying crops, floods and soaring global prices. The government admitted this week that hidden hunger is now gripping this poverty-stricken nation. Every day, the queues are getting longer.
I could not go to work today. If I don't queue for rice, then my family will not have a meal.
These women have been queuing for 6 hours for just 5 kilograms of rice. Now they're coming to this government-subsidised depot 2 or 3 times a week because the price of rice is so high at the market. Bangladesh is facing a severe hunger problem, and with just 4 months' supply left, they're pinning their hopes on a bumper harvest. We met Kulsum waiting in the queue with her 1-year-old boy. She pays 37 cents for a kilogram of subsidised rice, just over half the price in the shops.
If there were no government depots, then poor people like me would die of starvation.
Bangladesh is the world's 4th largest rice producer, but in order to feed its 150 million people, it needs to import supplementary supplies. Farmers like Alam Hassanpur are banking on a top harvest in May.
If a natural disaster happens and we don't get a good crop, there will be a deep crisis in the country and we won't be able to keep up with demand.
Alam knows the risks only too well. He's lost his entire crop twice in the last 8 years. The government says it has a contingency plan. Farmers have been told to stockpile wheat and potatoes.
I think even if there is last minute some natural disasters, it is unlikely to be, for the whole country as a whole. So I think we have some, safeguards there.
If this rice harvest fails, it could ignite widespread unrest and violence and add to the problems of a caretaker military-backed government trying to steer the country towards democratic elections. Hannah Belcher, Al Jazeera, Dacca, Bangladesh.